Before we dive into the dramatic tale of how a seemingly ordinary farm became the epicenter of a neighborhood showdown, make sure you're subscribed. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any of our captivating stories. Now, let's get into the heart of this incredible situation. The sun, a hazy orb filtering through the morning mist, cast long shadows across Jonathan John Miller's modest farm. The air, thick with the earthy scent of turned soil and the faint aroma of blooming alfalfa, contrasted sharply with the sterile, manicured lawns of the neighboring Crestwood Estates Homeowners Association. John, a man whose life was etched in the lines of his weathered face and calloused hands, surveyed his livestock, a small flock of Rhode Island Reds pecking diligently at the ground, and a pair of sturdy goats contentedly munching on hay. His tranquility, however, was about to be shattered. The insistent trill of his cell phone pierced the quiet, the caller ID flashing Martha's name. Martha, a kind-hearted woman residing on the fringes of the HOA, often served as John's early warning system. Her voice, usually warm and cheerful, was strained with anxiety. "John, it's Karen. She's on the warpath again. I saw her pacing in her yard, phone glued to her ear, and she's been glaring in your direction." John's shoulders slumped. Karen, the self-appointed guardian of Crestwood Estates' pristine image, had once again found a reason to object to his rural existence. He knew the drill: complaints about noise, odors, and the general unsightliness of his farm. What Karen didn't know, however, was that this time her timing was spectacularly poor. Sheriff Deputy Thompson, a man with decades of experience and a keen eye for detail, and Officer Ramirez, a younger officer eager to prove himself, were already on John's property. They weren't there for any of John's alleged infractions, but rather in response to a complaint from Sarah Peterson, another resident of Crestwood Estates. Sarah, a quiet, unassuming woman, had finally reached her breaking point after months of Karen's relentless harassment, which included trespassing and invasive surveillance. Karen, completely unaware of the police presence related to her own actions, dialed 911, her voice rising in indignation as she launched into her litany of grievances. "I demand immediate action," she exclaimed, her voice echoing through the quiet morning. "That man's farm is a blight on our community. The chickens are an intolerable disturbance, the tractor is creating excessive noise, and that compost pile is a health hazard." The 911 dispatcher, noting the address, calmly informed Karen that officers were already on the scene. Karen's face flushed with a mixture of triumph and irritation. She assumed her complaints had prompted the police response, and she envisioned herself directing the officers like a conductor leading an orchestra. She strode purposefully towards John's barn, her phone still pressed to her ear, her voice growing louder with each step. "I want to know why you haven't addressed these violations," she demanded, her eyes darting between John and the two officers. Officer Ramirez, his expression calm and professional, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we're here in response to a separate complaint. Could you please state your name and address for our records?" Karen, momentarily thrown off balance, rattled off her details, her eyes narrowing as she realized the officer's attention was not solely focused on John. Deputy Thompson, his gaze steady, interjected, "Ma'am, we have a complaint from Sarah Peterson regarding your behavior on her property." Karen's face turned a shade of crimson, her carefully constructed composure beginning to crumble. "That's absurd. She's the one who's been trespassing," she sputtered, her voice laced with disbelief. John, observing the scene with a sense of grim satisfaction, knew that the tables were about to turn. This time, Karen's penchant for meddling had backfired spectacularly. The officers, their demeanor polite but firm, began to question Karen about her interactions with Sarah and other residents. The questions were precise, and the officers were taking detailed notes. The chickens continued their rhythmic pecking, the tractor remained silent, and the compost pile exuded a faint, earthy aroma, all silent witnesses to Karen's impending downfall. The officers were about to request to see Karen's phone, which contained evidence that would contradict her statements. They would also ask her about any recording devices that she carried. The morning was no longer peaceful, but it was about to become very interesting. The tension in the air thickened, a palpable weight that pressed down on the small gathering. Karen, her composure fractured, began to argue with increasing vehemence, her voice echoing across John's farm. "This is an outrage. I have rights. I'm a member of the HOA, and I demand that you address the violations on this property." She gestured wildly towards John's barn, her finger stabbing the air like an accusatory dagger. Officer Ramirez, attempting to maintain order, held up a hand. "Ma'am, please lower your voice. We're trying to conduct an investigation." But Karen was beyond reason, her carefully constructed persona of polite authority dissolving into a torrent of indignation. "Investigation? I'll tell you what needs investigating. This man's farm is a disgrace. It's lowering property values. It's a health hazard." John, his patience wearing thin, stepped forward. "Karen, you're trespassing. And you're making false accusations. You know those chickens are within the allowed noise limits, and my compost is properly contained." Karen scoffed, her eyes narrowed. "Allowed noise limits? Those squawking birds are driving me insane. And that compost pile is attracting vermin." Deputy Thompson, his gaze unwavering, interjected. "Ma'am, we've received complaints from multiple residents about your behavior, including allegations of harassment and trespassing. We're going to need you to cooperate with our investigation." Karen's face contorted in disbelief. "Harassment? I'm the one being harassed. By this farmer and his animals." She sputtered, her words laced with venom. The situation escalated rapidly. Karen, feeling cornered, began to raise her voice even further, attracting the attention of other nearby residents. From her porch, Martha watched with a mixture of apprehension and grim satisfaction. Sarah Peterson, the initial complainant, emerged from her house, her expression resolute. "Karen, you need to stop," she said, her voice firm. "You've been harassing me for months. You've been taking pictures of my property, you've been leaving notes on my door, and you've even been trespassing." Karen turned on Sarah, her face flushed with anger. "You're lying. I've done nothing of the sort," she yelled. Officer Ramirez stepped between them. "Ma'am, we have evidence to the contrary." He held up a small tablet, displaying a series of photographs and videos. "These were provided by Miss Peterson. They show you on her property taking pictures and leaving notes." Karen's eyes widened in panic. Those are doctored," she stammered. Deputy Thompson, his expression stern, said, "Ma'am, we're going to need you to come with us. We need to take a statement." Karen, realizing the gravity of the situation, began to plead. "Please, this is a misunderstanding. I just want what's best for the community." Her voice trembled, a stark contrast to her earlier bravado. John watched as the officers led Karen away, her protests fading into the distance. The misunderstandings and confrontations had spiraled out of control, revealing the true nature of Karen's actions. The small crowd of neighbors that had gathered began to speak to each other, sharing their own experiences with Karen's behavior. The atmosphere shifted, a collective sense of relief mixed with a lingering unease. The realization that Karen's reign of terror might finally be coming to an end began to sink in. The peaceful morning had shattered, replaced by the harsh reality of Karen's actions, and the unfolding investigation. The sterile, fluorescent lights of the sheriff's station hummed, casting a stark glow on the digital evidence arrayed before Deputy Thompson and Officer Ramirez. The bucolic charm of John Miller's farm seemed a distant memory, replaced by the cold, hard data that revealed Karen's intricate web of deception. Deputy Thompson, his brow furrowed in concentration, navigated through the labyrinth of files, each one a testament to Karen's relentless campaign of harassment. Officer Ramirez, with the meticulous precision of a seasoned investigator, cataloged the contents of Karen's seized smartphone, a Pandora's box of incriminating evidence. It was not merely Sarah Peterson who had fallen victim to Karen's obsessive scrutiny. The digital trail revealed a multitude of residents within Crestwood Estates who had endured similar acts of intrusion. Time-stamped photographs depicted Karen peering through the windows of neighboring homes, her gaze predatory. Audio recordings captured her vitriolic tirades, directed at anyone who dared to challenge her authority. A series of anonymous, hate-filled emails, traced back to her IP address, further underscored the malicious nature of her actions. A chilling pattern emerged, a meticulously crafted campaign of psychological warfare designed to exert control and instill fear. The investigation revealed that Karen's incessant complaints about John's farm were not rooted in genuine concerns for community standards, but rather in a deeply personal vendetta. She had meticulously documented every perceived infraction, exaggerating minor inconveniences and fabricating entire incidents to justify her relentless crusade. A thorough search of county records unveiled a disturbing history of similar disputes in previous neighborhoods. Reports detailed frivolous lawsuits, fabricated police reports, and aggressive confrontations with fellow homeowners. Her past was a tapestry of fractured relationships and legal battles, a testament to her insatiable need for control. Deputy Thompson, his expression grim, turned to Officer Ramirez. "This isn't just a matter of an overzealous HOA member," he stated, his voice heavy with concern. "This is a pattern of behavior that borders on criminal harassment. We have enough evidence to build a very strong case." The officers made the decision to conduct interviews with other residents of Crestwood Estates, a move that unleashed a torrent of pent-up frustration and fear. Neighbors, emboldened by the knowledge that they were not alone in their experiences, recounted their own encounters with Karen's invasive surveillance and petty vindictiveness. Robert, a retired accountant with a meticulous mind, presented a detailed spreadsheet documenting Karen's numerous violations of HOA bylaws, including unauthorized landscaping projects and the illegal placement of signage. Emily, a young mother, displayed a series of threatening text messages she had received from Karen after complaining about the noise emanating from Karen's late-night gatherings. The weight of the evidence mounted, revealing a woman consumed by a relentless desire for control and a willingness to manipulate and intimidate those around her. It became increasingly clear that Karen's actions were not merely the result of an overzealous adherence to community regulations, but a manifestation of deeper psychological issues. The officers, armed with this overwhelming body of evidence, prepared to confront Karen. They knew that her carefully constructed facade of respectability was about to crumble, exposing the true nature of her actions. The twist in the narrative was not merely the sheer volume of evidence, but the insidious nature of Karen's manipulative tactics. The discovery of her past unveiled a long and disturbing history of calculated harassment, a pattern that had been cleverly concealed beneath a veneer of civility. The residents of Crestwood Estates were not simply dealing with an annoying neighbor, they were confronting a woman who had systematically abused her position of authority to exert control and inflict emotional harm. The true extent of Karen's actions had been laid bare, and the consequences would be severe, a reckoning that would reverberate throughout the community. The interrogation room, a stark, utilitarian space, became the stage for Karen's final act. Deputy Thompson and Officer Ramirez, their expressions resolute, presented Karen with the overwhelming evidence gathered from her phone, the neighbors and the county records. Karen, her composure shattered, initially attempted to deny the allegations, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and defiance. However, as the officers methodically presented each piece of evidence, her defenses crumbled. The time-stamped photos, the audio recordings, the emails, and the witness testimonies painted an undeniable picture of her systematic harassment. Faced with the irrefutable truth, Karen finally broke down, her carefully constructed facade of respectability dissolving into a torrent of tears and self-pity. She attempted to justify her actions, claiming she was merely trying to maintain the standards of the community, but her words rang hollow. The officers, unmoved by her emotional display, informed her of the charges against her: harassment, trespassing, and filing false police reports. The consequences were severe, including potential jail time and substantial fines. The news spread quickly through Crestwood Estates, a wave of relief washing over the community. Neighbors, who had lived in fear of Karen's scrutiny for years, finally felt a sense of liberation. John Miller, his farm once a target of Karen's relentless complaints, became a symbol of resilience and community spirit. The HOA, recognizing the need for change, underwent a dramatic transformation. A special meeting was called, and Karen was swiftly removed from her position of authority. New bylaws were implemented, emphasizing respect for individual property rights and discouraging frivolous complaints. The HOA also established a mediation process to resolve disputes peacefully, preventing future conflicts from escalating. Sarah Peterson, empowered by the support of her neighbors, became a vocal advocate for victims of harassment. She organized a community workshop on conflict resolution and boundary setting, empowering residents to stand up for themselves. Robert, the retired accountant, used his meticulous record-keeping skills to help other residents document instances of harassment, creating a network of support and accountability. Emily, the young mother, organized a neighborhood watch program, fostering a sense of community and mutual protection. The transformation extended beyond legal and procedural changes. The community itself underwent a profound shift. Neighbors who had previously kept to themselves began to connect, sharing stories and building bonds. The atmosphere of fear and suspicion that had permeated Crestwood Estates was replaced by a sense of camaraderie and trust. The once divided community had come together, united against a common threat. John's farm became a gathering place, a symbol of the rural charm that had initially drawn many residents to the area. Children played in the fields, neighbors shared picnics under the shade of the old oak tree, and the sounds of laughter filled the air. Karen's actions, intended to divide and control, had ultimately brought the community closer together. The court proceedings unfolded, and Karen was held accountable for her actions. The judge, recognizing the severity of her offenses and the pattern of her behavior, imposed a sentence that included community service, mandatory anger management counseling, and a restraining order prohibiting her from contacting her former neighbors. The resolution brought closure to a long and painful chapter in the lives of the Crestwood Estates residents. The community had learned a valuable lesson about the importance of standing up to bullies and the power of unity. The farm, once a source of contention, became a symbol of resilience, and the community, once divided, emerged stronger and more united than ever before. The peaceful rhythm of life returned to Crestwood Estates, a testament to the enduring power of community and the triumph of justice. And so, the story of Crestwood Estates serves as a reminder that even in the face of adversity, community and justice will prevail. If you enjoyed this tale of neighborly disputes and unexpected twists, and want to hear more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. Stay tuned for more captivating narratives that explore the complexities of human interaction and the power of community.